Thank you. You're the best timekeepers ever. So we are super pleased to have you here. Leila is quite accomplished. You are bestseller. You are a journalist. You've held a title of ambassador representing France. You have been a judge at Cannes. How are you able to do all these amazing things while you're still this young?
Oh, first of all, hello, everyone. I think it's a question you could ask so many women. How are you able to make so many things? It's something that we learn when we are very young. I think that we are able to be a mother and a daughter and a professional and have different fields in our life. So I try to do my best, and sometimes I fail, and sometimes it's not working, and sometimes it works.
Great. So, with all these accomplishments, I'm sure you could share with us some of the more unusual or quirky writing habits you have. You have written more than one book, so you can give us experience from how your writing process has been.
Yeah, I've been publishing for 10 years now. I've published 10 books in 10 years. I don't really have a routine. I would love to tell you that I wake up every morning at 5 and that I read poems and that I write and then go get my children at school, but it's very messy, I have to say. So when I'm in the process of writing a book, I try to get very, very focused and to do nothing else but writing and thinking about my book, especially when it's a novel. When it's a non-fiction, it's different. But when it's fiction, I have to think about my characters all the time. So I try to do nothing else. I don't take care of the house anymore. I don't take care of my family. I don't answer the phone. I don't go out. So I think the main thing is to be able to say no all the time. When someone is asking you to have a drink, you say no. When someone is asking you, can you cook? When your son is telling you, can you cook me a snack? No, I'm writing. So you have to become very selfish and obsessed with your work. And I try also to spend time all by myself, very far away from my house. I go for like 2 weeks, 3 weeks, and I don't talk with anyone. I stay in my pajamas all day long, and I eat whatever I find, and I become a little bit crazy. I drink a little bit also when I'm depressed. So yeah, my routine is not very sexy because problems of alcoholism and hygiene, as you can imagine, in my pajamas all day. So that's how it is.
So this is a perfect segue into the next question. If you could have a conversation with the younger writer you, because you have been at this for 10 years, what is the one piece of advice that you would give the younger you, writer?
Oh, wow. I've never thought of this. Not to think too much. Not to try to have... not to think too much and not to be afraid. Because anyway, if you try to protect yourself from certain things, it's useless. If bad things have to happen, they will happen. You can't really protect yourself from things. So I think to be more brave, or I would tell that. But I don't really remember her, this woman. I don't really know who she was. She's kind of a stranger to me, but I don't say that in a bad way.
Yeah.
What I mean is that she had her life,
yes,
and I think she enjoyed what she was, and I'm someone else now. So it would feel very weird to me to have a conversation with her, actually.
Okay, so the trilogy, the first book in the series is In the Country of Others. Ladies and gentlemen, Textbook Center have it out there. The second one is Watch Us Dance. And the third one is out, but only in France. It hasn't been translated yet into English. So, as the intro said, inspired by your own family story, history, I would really like to know, because it takes quite some courage to write about your own family. Please, could you tell us what has been your process of research to get to 3 books inspired by your own family history?
So when I met my publisher 10 years ago, I remember that we had a dinner together and he asked me questions about my life and my background. And I told him about my family. I told him that my grandmother, she was from Alsace, so from the east of France, and she met my grandfather in 1944 during the war because my father was in the colonial army. He was a Moroccan soldier, but in the French army. They fell in love, and my grandmother came to Morocco, and my grandmother was a very important person in my life, but she was quite a character. She was a really, really interesting woman, very brave, very free, sometimes also very violent, and she was a very good storyteller. So I told him this, and he said, okay, but don't write about it now. You're not ready yet. You have to think about it, and you have to think about how you want to tell this story about your family. So it took me like 5 or 6 years to understand how I wanted to tell this story and why I wanted to tell it. Because it's not because it's your family that it's interesting or that people are going to rely to this story. So at that time, in 2017, I have just published my book, Sex and Lies. That was a book about sexuality in Morocco because I'm an activist, feminist, and for also the queer rights and abortion in Morocco. And it was very difficult for people to understand my identity at that point. What I mean is that Moroccan people were criticizing me a lot, saying, but you're not a real Moroccan. You live in France and you come here, you write about Morocco, you don't have the right, you don't have the legitimacy to do this. And in France, people would say, but why do you criticize your country? Because now but you're giving, opportunity to people who are racist or Islamophobic to criticize more. And I felt that it was so difficult for me to try to tell them and explain to them who I was and why I was what I was. A woman who is at the same time French and Moroccan, and a woman who has this double identity. And I feel it's something that now a lot of people are experiencing, especially new generation. And us, people from the South, the big South, we are very cosmopolite. We travel, we go from places to another, we speak different languages. And that's something also that I wanted to explain to the French public and the Western public in general, that our history is complex. Our identities are complex. We have a past, and we need to explain to them from where we come from. And so that's why I began to write this story, not because I wanted to talk about my grandmother, but because I needed to explain to them the beginning of the whole story and to begin during colonization in Morocco.
So, what is the strangest thing that you came across as you're researching your family story for the trilogy?
I think the strangest thing is that at the end, sometimes I found it impossible to draw a line between truth and fiction. That some stories in my family have been told so many times that it became reality, even if it was an absolute lie or a fiction. And also other things that I was absolutely sure was a souvenir was not a souvenir and was not something I remembered, but something someone told me. And another thing also is that sometimes I invented a scene and my mother would read the scene and would say, "How do you know that?" And I would say, "No, I don't know it, I just imagine it." And she says, "No, it happened exactly like that." And sometimes you describe someone. I remember that I described a man, the hand of a man that I've never met and never even seen a picture of this man. And my mother said, "But how do you know that he had exactly these hands?" So I discovered, the strangest thing is that I discovered the magic of fiction, how fiction can also helps you sometimes discover some truth that was hidden or that was taboo or was a secret. So I think it's the strangest thing.
That's very interesting. It sounds like the ancestors were whispering while you were writing to inspire you. But now that you mention your mother, how has your family received the trilogy? Has anybody tried to inspire you to have a certain end or a certain finish to your characters?
Honestly, I'm very lucky because the majority of them are dead. So I wrote a lot about the one who are dead because they can't tell me anything, and I try to focus on them very much. And the one who are alive, they don't really dare to tell me anything. I can feel, with my mother it's very funny because I write and then she's the first one to read the manuscript. So I give her the manuscript and then for like 1 week or 2 weeks we have a very weird relationship because I call her, how are you? But the only thing I'm thinking is, did you read, did you read, did you read? But I don't ask, she doesn't answer and we act as if there was not this elephant in the room. And then she arrives with the manuscript and usually she writes notes on the paper. And sometimes she just writes a big no. And when I say, okay, why did you write this no? She's like, no, never mind, never mind. And so at the end, this conversation has no point. And she says nothing about what she thinks. And so I just finished the trilogy and I said, I've been working now for 7 years on this trilogy. I would love to know what you feel. And she said, I'm going to write you a letter and tell you what I feel, but I haven't received the letter yet, and I think she will never write it. But I like that also. I think, it's beautiful sometimes with people that you love very much, people with whom you share intimacy, being able also not to tell things. Yeah. Sometimes in silence you understand a lot of things. So she's very respectful of my work. I'm sure that sometimes it was not easy for her to read my books. In the first one, it's very much focused on her parents, who were well known in my town and in Morocco. And she said to me one time, it's not easy for me when I go to the supermarket and people come to me asking me questions about the sexual life of my parents and asking me, was it true that it was so hot between your parents? And so, my mother sometimes, I know that she suffered of it, but you know what? When your daughter is a writer, you're going to suffer. You know that. It's always difficult to have a writer in a family.
Great. So you have caused your mother to have discussions about taboo topics, whether she likes it or not. You said that by the time you started the first one, in the country of others, you were about 6 years in the profession. Was there something specific that happened? Was there an event, a reason that caused you to go like, now I feel I'm ready, I'm mature enough to broach this subject?
Yeah, probably because of the situation in France. It was a very, very difficult moment. It was in 2016 or 17 after the terrorist attacks in Paris, and there was a very violent, difficult conversation in France about Islam, about Arabs, about immigration, about colonialism, and I was hearing things that were so cruel and so stupid and so untrue also, that I felt I had the responsibility to say something. But as a writer, I think that when you have to say something, write a book. It's not about going on the radio or on the TV show and say what you think. It's not that matters. What matters is what you can write. So I tried to answer some questions that were at that time, but I wrote 1,200 pages to answer that because I felt that it's complex, that it needs nuance, and when you deal with questions like immigration, Islam, colonization, and all this, you need to be very focused on that, and that's what I was trying to do. So I think it came of sadness and of disappointment also, feeling that at the end, even if you're in France for 20 years, at the end you're an Arab and you're a Muslim, and people look at you like that. And I wanted to be also something else, and I wanted to gain back my historicity as a Moroccan woman, to tell them we have a history. We're not just Muslim sitting in the desert with camels and eating couscous. Sometimes that's the vision they have of us.
Thank you. So I know quite a number of people in the room have not read the book. We will not tell them when it is set, but you just get to have a taste of the second book.
Aisha was like her father, touchy, violent, soupolée. Mathilde would say. And what annoyed Aisha was not the accusation itself, but the idiocy of that expression. Why did milk soup mean short-tempered? The phrase always makes her think of those soups that Mathilde used to make, with pieces of boiled vegetables floating around in them, stringy bits from turnips that had so disgusted Aisha when she was a child. In Strasbourg, she had fought against her own nature, following her parents' advice, and she had forced herself to be discreet. We don't want them saying that Arabs don't know how to behave themselves. Aisha had behaved herself. Aisha felt a mix of excitement and fear when she began working at the hospital in Strasbourg and was put in charge of her first patients. She knew all the theory, of course, and was practically I don't know how to say this in English, infaillible, when it came to reporting a pathology, when she feared the question of her patient, who wanted to know exactly what was wrong with them, but who did not listen when she tried to explain it to them. The patient did not take her seriously, and often when she left a room after her morning visit, one of them would say, "But I haven't seen the doctor yet. Could you call for him?" She had to get used to being mistaken for a nurse, while male nurses were often presumed to be doctors.
Thank you. This sounds like today, right? It could be the case today in any country, in any context. However, this is not today. Please, could you just help the audience understand who Mathilde is until we get to Aisha?
Yeah, so Mathilde is this woman from Alsace I was telling you about. She's very passionate and she's very naive also. She was born in 1921 in France, and so she has a very idealist vision of Africa and of Morocco. She's a sort of Karen Blixen. And when she marries this man, this Amin, she's absolutely sure that she will go to Morocco with him, that she will have a big house and people working for her and everyone will admire her. But no, it's not going to, nothing of this is going to happen. And she will arrive in Morocco meeting her husband, who is very different from the man she knew when she was in France, because in Morocco he's very aware of what people are going to say about this couple because she's white and he's an Arab, and he's suffering a lot of the humiliation and marginalization that he's victim of because of the colonial world. So they live in a farm very remote from the town, and they suffer a lot in this town, in this farm. It's very, very difficult. And they have two children, Aisha, this girl we were just talking about, and Selim, who suffer a lot also of being mixed race children, as people used to say at that time, and they are victim of racism a lot. And so Aisha will be the first woman of her family to go study abroad, and she will study medicine, and she will become a gynecologist, and she will marry a man called Mehdi, and they are very much inspired by my parents.
Great. So you broached the topic of one of the biggest foreign exchange programs we had, aka colonialism. Then you also discuss challenges of race, issues of the different gender roles that are expected, what women are expected to do, patriarchy in the society, in the workplace. These are all things that, we're experiencing in one form or the other. So what has been the reception from your own family as you have a lens, you're pointing a lens at them? What has been the reception of your family, the community around you as you share this? And when you go out to have these conversations about your book, what has been the reception from people?
You know what is interesting with this trilogy is that this reception changed through time. Yeah. When I published the first one, I don't know if it's like here in Kenya, but sometimes for Moroccan people it's very challenging to see someone writing a book about Morocco, sometimes being very critical, and publishing this book in France. They feel betrayed, and they feel, oh, you're not giving a good image of our country. And what I'm trying to explain to them is that I don't work for tourist office, so my job is not to give a good image of Morocco. There are people who have to do that. And it's very difficult to explain that to the people, but I think that if you do it very sincerely with your heart and you try really to explain to them what you are trying to do as a writer, and that's a quote of James Baldwin that I love very much when he says, that's because I love America that I criticize it so much. And that's why I'm trying to explain sometimes to the Moroccan public or to my community or my big family, my entourage, try to explain to them that if I didn't care about Morocco, if I didn't care about its future and the future of the new generation, if I didn't care about equality between men and women in my country, about the necessity of fighting against all the mechanism of domination, I wouldn't write about it. Yeah. I write about it because I love them and because I believe in a different future for us. And now I see that with the last one, something has changed. Now they understand what I'm trying to do, and they understand that I have so much affection for this country, for very simple thing, for the landscapes, for the food, for the sense of humor, for the language. And I hope that now they feel also proud to have this book, this novel about a Moroccan French family.
Great. So looking back now that we are yet to catch up with the third one, but looking back now, what's something that you wish you knew when you started the trilogy?
Oh, I wish I knew that I was going to finish it first, because it would have been a relief. No, I wish I knew that it was going to helped me a lot personally. I think that now I feel at peace with myself on many things. For a very, very long time, I was very angry against people, against my country, because I have to say also, and it's the story of the last book, my father was in prison in Morocco, and he died just after, and then he was found totally innocent. So I was also I wanted revenge, and I was angry, and I wanted to speak about all the taboo and the secrets also because of that. But at the end, I found myself in a very, very different spirit. Now I feel, as I was telling you, I feel at peace, and I feel that I don't need people to tell me who I am, and I don't need validation from others. Now that I've written this book, I know exactly where I come from. I feel very close to my ancestors who are dead. I feel they are here. I live with a lot of ghosts, but very nice ghosts that are my friends, and it's very, I feel at peace, and I wish I knew that at the beginning.
That's great. That's really great. Please, that deserves a round of applause. Most of us are working through that in therapy. So I think this is a good point to just find out if you have any questions for Leila at this stage. There are more fun things to come, but I want to involve you at this stage. Yes, please. Right behind you.
Hi, Leila. Thank you, and thank you for this conversation. So interesting. So, Leila, I've read your book in the first Les Pays des Autres, the first book. When you write about your grandmother and your grandfather particularly, I wondered, how did you find the gap between the grandmother you must have known and the grandmother that you have created in the book? And what did it do for you to, did you sometimes get fixated about the grandmother you had known, and then to bring out the dirty parts of her? I'm curious about what that work has done for you personally, and how do you fictionalize people that you know? That's the base question.
I do it all the time, everything is fiction for me. I don't really live in the real world. I feel everything is fiction. And when I live something, it's horrible to say, I always think, how am I going to write about it? What am I going to change? Maybe she will not be wearing this dress. And that's why I was telling you before, for me it's very difficult to know if something is true or if it's something that I have invented. But the magic of fiction is that from the moment I began to write about Mathilde, It was Mathilde. It was not my grandmother. It was Mathilde. And when I think about Mathilde, she doesn't look at all like my mother, for instance, physically. And also what I try to do is not to write and not to use what I know about my grandmother, but to use the fascination I used to feel when I was 8 years old and I was looking at her. And I try to write with the eyes of this little girl. Because my grandmother, she was very, very tall. She was blonde with green eyes. And she would speak perfectly Arabic, but with a sort of German accent. And she was very authoritarian in the farm she was working in. And so I was always looking up at her, you know. I was afraid of her, but at the same time, yeah, I was really admiring her because she was so free. You know, my grandfather, when he wanted to go out, sometimes at night he would say, I go to the bar. And my grandmother, she would always say, I come with you. And you would see my grandfather running and my grandmother running behind him because she wanted to go with him because she didn't trust him at all. And so I was like, wow. And she would always say to me, you know, if you want to go somewhere, you say, I go with you. You go. Well, even if people don't want you, you go, you enter, and then everything will be okay. And she was a wonderful storyteller. So of course, when you're a child, you know, you love that. And it was very hot in the summer in Morocco. And she would say, okay, come in my room with my sisters. And she would never tell us tales with princess and things like that, but just horrible stories with people killing little girls and things like that. But we would love that so much. You know, we couldn't sleep. And it was... So I tried to write with this, with the souvenir of how much I admired her and how fascinating she was for the little girl that I was.
Thank you. Another question? Yes, please.
I'm a comment and a question. The comment is, it's interesting to hear you say how your sense of yourself has changed, because even in interviews it comes across. So I've heard 2 interviews of yours on the BBC. The first one was when you've been interviewed about your book Lullaby, and some of your answers, it was almost like you were pushing back at the interviewers and the listeners who were asking questions about your writing process and so on, and you almost didn't want to explain your writing process. But more recently, just as you had finished the 3rd book, you are much more at peace, and you even expressed it that way. So it's interesting to hear you say that now as well. My question is, you talked about an early conversation you had with your editor, and your editor telling you that you should write about your life, but not right now. Now that you've done it, and one of the aims you had was to be able to express to a French public that there is not one kind of Moroccan, there is not one kind of person, let me put it that way. So my question is, have you succeeded in that? And have you gotten the responses you expected?
Yes, I think so. I think so. Then, you know, we're not politicians. I'm not here to convince people. I don't want people to vote for me. It's not my goal. But now, you know, I feel that when I do conferences like this in France, I meet so many people at the end, people who are, well, what can I say, half Moroccan, half Algerian, from Tunisia, from whatever, and who say, okay, I read this book and it's about me. You wrote about me. That's my story. And when you hear so many people telling you that and telling you, oh my God, that's a relief because I was so fed up to read always the same thing about Morocco, and you know, there was also this pressure sometime when you come from countries like ours to write things where you are a victim, where everything is terrible, especially when you are a woman, and they want you sometimes to be this. And to try to build a certain sense of pride, but not the pride that is patriotic or to say I'm proud to be this, but just a sense of pride of being able to know where you come from and to tell the complexity of this particular identity, to the singularity of your voice. So yeah, I think that in that matter I succeeded because of my readers, because my readers are great. You know, we depend on our readers. A book is nothing if it's not read. And now I feel that I arrived at a moment where I can have this kind of reader who can understand what I'm trying to say, and not only understand, but who have this appetite for that, who wants that, the complexity, and who are, who are fed up with a certain kind of book, who describe the world with, women like this, men like that, who wants more polyphony, more complexity, more nuance. My characters, they migrate, they travel a lot. They are not the kind of Maghrebi people imagine in France, and what I try to explain to them all the time, I always tell journalists in France, but people in Africa, they are much more cosmopolitan than yourself. They travel more, they speak to people, they watch TV, they are on the internet, they are much more open-minded than yourself. You are the one now who are so close to other cultures. But we, because AKA this foreign...
exchange program.
The force of history, we had to open ourselves to other cultures. So maybe of this suffering, we can make also a force. We can do something of it. We are not forced to be victim of it. We can now also say, we have something to say about it. And the thing we have to say is not, you're guilty. No, it's something else. We can build now beautiful things with it.
Thank you. I'm not seeing a hand up, so, okay, there's one there.
Very quickly, a bit about the process. Actually, I read online that you did a creative writing workshop. And I'm curious about how you think that influences writing, and if it actually helped, or if there were things you had to unlearn. Yeah.
No, in France, it's not really creative workshop. What I did is an atelier d'écriture, but it's very, very different from what is done in the Anglo-Saxon world. It was just for 1 month, and you come and you meet with people, but you already have your text. It's just a place where you meet with people and you read what you have written, and people comment, and that's it. I mean, they don't give you any tips or any clues. But it was very important for me because that's where I met my publisher. And that's, I think also what was important is to feel that I was able to handle the critics and that I was not suffering so much of people telling me, not interesting, I don't believe in this scene, who is this character, or this dialogue sucks. I felt that I wanted so much to write that I need this critic, and I think it's good actually to be. I have some male writers, friends, I have to say, who hate when you give them a critics. Why? What do you say that? And they don't talk to you for like 2 weeks. But really, I'm not like this. For me, I think. I feel lucky when someone wants to give me his insight on what I'm writing. And my publisher, he always says that to me. I'm still going to be very harsh on you, even if you have Goncourt Prize or whatever, because success is a danger for an artist. And it's very important to have people around you who are still able to criticize you and tell you to go to your office again and work. Yeah, I feel that sometimes. To be really honest, when I read American novels, sometimes I feel, oh, I see it. I see where it's going. It's very well done. It's well done. Very good. Oh, this dialogue, superb. Oh, this guy. But it's so well done that it's annoying and that you know exactly how it will end. So, yeah, even if I think that those creative workshops can be great for some people, I'm a little bit afraid that in the capitalist world we are living in, where you want to produce things and sell them, and what matters is what is your public and who is going to buy this book, when sometimes you can't make the difference between a publisher and a producer. You know what I mean? I think the problem is here. The problem is that it's also convenient for the market to have this kind of creative workshop, because at the end it's a product like another one, and you're going to sell it, and you know exactly how to sell it, and it's good to create things that have flows, that are maybe not, that are not perfect, that are not as well done as it is sometimes for those novels. But I completely agree with you, yeah.
So to follow up on that, if you had a superpower related to writing,
Related to writing, okay.
what would it be?
Because I was thinking of something. I would like to have a very good memory. I would like to be able to remember beautiful sentences I've read, to remember the feeling I had when I read this scene when I was very young, and to be able to make all those links between all the books that I've read. But maybe because of this alcohol I drink, I lost my memory, so I'm not able to do that. But I would love to have that, a very, very sharp and good memory.
Following to her question as well, what would you say is a common writing trap that aspiring writers, some of whom are here, should avoid?
I think it's being, and even, I'm going to say that, but I know it's very difficult, being obsessed with publishing.
Okay.
I think at the beginning, when you begin to write, you have only to be focused on writing, writing. And at the beginning, I think one should write as if no one would ever read him. Because it's very important to have a certain sense of clandestinity. You write as if you were doing it in secret, and as if you were going to say all the things you can never say out loud with people. That's a place where you are safe, and everything can happen. All the bad thoughts you have, all the fantasy, all the things that seems impossible can be in the book. And so, yeah, I think that's the main difficulty, because a lot of young people come to me, can you help me to be published? And I'm like, no, we haven't talked about writing, and you're already asking me about publishing. But the first thing is write. Just think about that.
In the last 2 decades, you have written about the Arab Spring. You have been an activist. You have even gone to jail. You've been arrested. Not gone to jail. You've been arrested because of your activism work. It could be very easy for people here to think that all you write about is, about romance and all this beautiful.
I've never written about romance.
Beautiful, good things. But Leila, the writer, do you have any superstitions about writing?
Oh, superstitions. For instance, I don't like to analyze my work. I don't like to know why I write and how I write. I think writing has to stay mysterious. I think it's very important to write in the dark, not knowing exactly why you write and what is the destination. It has to be sort of very weird travel. It's like, driving at night. You can only see as far as the light of your car is. So you don't see much, but you know that you can drive like this for hours. And that's what I like, being in the dark with just a little light and not knowing why I do what I do. And so I try not to analyze too much what I'm doing.
We have come to the end of our conversation. Do you have any parting shot?
Any what, sorry?
Parting shot, last comments, statements, inspiration for the good people here.
No, what I could say is that I was so happy and to be here in Nairobi and to participate in this festival. I really, really believe in what the Hay Festival and the Book Bank is defending, this idea of South-to-South conversation, the fact that we have so much to share also together. I'm Moroccan, I'm African, and I'm always very, very interested in meeting other writers from the continent. And I think we need also to try to work together and to defend exactly what I was saying before about our identities, our point of view, and the fact that we can make some shifts in the way we look at the world and at some political situation.
Thank you so much, Leila.
Thank you very
for
much.
Your time.
Thank you very much. And now, airport.